the Minnesota. This is massive, David. This is a massive game. Minnesota Vikings versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll talk about the playoffs and all that stuff when we get to the spread. Fantasy football wise, Dalvin Cook is a start, even against that strong Tampa Bay. You got to start Dalvin Cook. Even against that strong Tampa Bay defense, you got to start him. And by the way,
have to have some seriously good options to be able to sit him.
Yeah, you would. And look, I think Dalvin Cook, I have a nice projection on him. They're going to limit him in the screen game. Like, Tampa Bay might be the best defense in terms of defending screen passes. Although we're seeing the NFL, I'm seeing less screen passes in general. But just Tampa Bay, very impressive. But you got to start Dalvin in spite of that. I start both wide receivers, even in this tough matchup. Thielen and Jefferson are going to get touches. But I don't start Cousins this week. I don't like it because I like this Tampa Bay defense. Now, Tampa Bay, coming off a bye week, mind you, I'm starting Tom Brady. I'm starting Ronald Jones, and I'm starting. I don't know. Is Godwin back yet?
Mm-hmm.
Godwin's back.
He's been back a couple games.
Has he? I thought he was out the last one. My bad, everybody. Godwin, I start. I stay away from everybody else at wide receiver. Gronk, I start. On the other hand, what do you think, David?
Yeah, you say this is a massive, massive game in terms of implications, in terms of actual gameplay. I think we're going to get a massive, massive letdown because Kirk Cousins right now, he's following the Derek Carr trajectory. He's like completely a parallel. It's so easily comparable to me, right? Because these are the kind of quarterbacks who play better than people give them credit for, right? Like we talked about Cousins since week 8, since after the bye, 12 touchdown to 1 interception ratio. Then this past week made it 15-2 touchdown interception ratio. And people haven't been giving him the credit. But right when everyone wants to start giving Kirk Cousins the credit, or like Derek Carr the credit, we got that letdown against Atlanta for Derek Carr.
That's been happening with Cousins since his Washington days.
Yeah, it's like right when people are ready to give him the credit, they give it to him. He lets us down. So the next week, everybody goes back to hating on him, and then he starts playing good again. Like Derek Carr, right? Everyone gave him the credit.
He plays better as the underdog, right?
Yeah, he put up a dud. The next week, goes right back to outproducing expectations. And I'm expecting the same thing with Kirk Cousins, because people are finally now giving him the credit he's deserved for the good play he's put up over the past 6 weeks. And basically in good matchups, almost every single one of them, minus the Chicago game, where that's a fairly good defense, and he put up 292, 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. But now he's got Tampa this week, who's just been a buzzsaw defensively. And what have we seen Tampa Bay do to teams who run the ball? Nobody can run the ball in Tampa, and if you're a run team who can't run, that's not good for Kirk Cousins in the passing game, because it's going to make them one-dimensional. When this team is one-dimensional, that's very, very bad news. So I'm expecting just flatness across the board from Minnesota. I'm not thrilled about either Thielen or Jefferson. I'm not scared to sit them. I mean, it's tough to sit them, but if you have a loaded roster, and you have the options, multiple wide receivers, I don't feel like I have to play either of those two guys this week. The other side, I feel like I have to play my Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers and Ronald Jones. The only guy who I feel like I don't have to play is probably Leonard Fournette. But Tampa Bay, talk about Tom Brady and how he never loses 2 in a row. He's lost 2 in a row. He ain't going to lose 3 in a row coming off of a bye.
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen. I'm expecting fireworks for this Tampa Bay offense. So I'm starting Godwin. I'm starting Evans. Antonio Brown's a start as well. Gronk, you start him as well. Rojo, you start him as well. Fournette, I mean, I guess if you have crap options and he's all you got, you can maybe start him too.
Antonio Brown's the interesting one. We see these teams adjust to different players. Most notably this year, the rookie running backs have, after the bye week, kind of a little bit more integrated, and they've taken off afterwards. I wonder if Antonio Brown's going to have that similar lift in this offense, because he kind of came in, they signed him, he had to wait, a couple weeks, due to protocols. He hasn't really been a factor yet. He could start to be a factor now, so that's an interesting one. In terms of playoff implications, if the season ended today, Minnesota's in the playoffs. They are in the playoffs over Arizona at this point. But I agree with you, David. I think it's a tough week for them to deal with Tampa Bay. I think it's garbage that Tampa Bay had a bye week last week. Like, they had a full 16, then we had a bye week the next week, and then
bye week should stop like week 10.
Yeah,
like 13 is way too late, especially when you talk about teams getting byes in week 4 and 5. Like, the discrepancy there, it's just way too wide. They need to shorten that gap.
Minnesota, the schedule makers were not kind at all to Minnesota this year. Look, the line Bovada has Minnesota plus 6.5 versus Tampa Bay. Who would you take there?
I'm taking Tampa Bay and what I expect to be a blowout win.
Look, before the season, I said Minnesota is going to start slow. They're going to finish the year fast. Minnesota will make the playoffs, and they might arguably be the best playing team in the NFC North by the end of the season. And that is starting to look like a decent projection because I got laughed at in the first quarter of the season. But, if the season were to end today, they would be in. But I agree with you, David. Coming off a bye week against Tampa Bay, coming off a couple losses, having a tough or like a pissed, motivated Tom Brady. It's just the schedule for Minnesota has just been brutal for them all year, complete garbage. But I'm going to take Tampa Bay to cover as well. But I still think Minnesota is playing really good football. I don't care, by the way, that the Jacksonville win was ugly. A win's a win. I think that was a little bit of a trap game for them, honestly. I think Minnesota's going to finish the year well. I just don't think this is the week for them.